The message arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning. Ambassador Diane Matthews stared at the holographic display, reading the words for the 5th time. Her office in the United Earth Government building was silent except for the soft hum of air circulation. An invitation to discuss humanity's place in the cosmic hierarchy, she said to herself, tapping her finger on her desk. Diane had spent 20 years in diplomatic service. She knew a threat when she saw one, even when it was wrapped in polite words. The Galactic Concordat had made contact with Earth 3 years ago. Since then, relations had been cold but stable. The aliens, led by the tall, gray-skinned Phyrexians, had seemed unimpressed with human achievements. Now, suddenly, they wanted a meeting on their space station. Diane pressed a button on her desk. "Get me Admiral Harrison, please. Priority 1. Within the hour, the World Council had gathered in the emergency chamber. 20 representatives from Earth's United Nations sat around a circular table, their faces showing varying degrees of concern. "This is not an invitation," Diane said, standing at the center of the room. "This is an ultimatum. The Phyrexians don't respect us. They want something from us, and they think we are too weak to refuse them." Admiral Paul Harrison, a tall man with gray hair and a serious face, nodded in agreement. "Our deep space monitors have picked up unusual movement in the Concordat fleet. They're positioning ships near the jump points to our system." On the large screen behind Diane, images appeared showing alien vessels moving into formation. The ships were sleek, with curved hulls that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Council President Maria Alvarez leaned forward. "What are our options?" "We could refuse to attend," offered Councilor John Peterson, representing North America. "Show them we won't be intimidated." "And then what?" asked Diane. "They've done this before. We've been monitoring their communications. 3 other species received similar invitations in the past decade. None of those species are heard from anymore." A heavy silence fell over the room. Lieutenant Samantha Mills, a young intelligence officer with short brown hair, stood up from her position near the wall. "Ambassador, if I may." At Diane's nod, she continued, "We've decoded more of their recent transmissions. They're discussing Earth as if our compliance is guaranteed. They're actually laughing about how we'll either not show up, or we'll send a pathetic delegation that they can easily control." Admiral Harrison's face hardened. "They don't know about the fleet." Several council members shifted uncomfortably. Earth's secret deep space fleet was known only to a few. After a Phyrexian scout ship had crashed in the Mojave Desert 8 years ago, Earth had quietly begun building. Using reverse-engineered technology, they had constructed ships that could match or exceed Concordat capabilities. "How long until the summit?" President Alvarez asked. 3 weeks, Diane replied. Admiral Harrison stood up. "The EDF Valiant is ready. Captain Alan Rogers has been running drills for months. If we need to show our strength, we can." "No," Diane said firmly. "If we show up with warships, we confirm their suspicions about us. They'll claim we're aggressive and use it as an excuse for whatever they're planning." "So what do you suggest?" asked Councilor Peterson. Diane smiled slightly. "We go. I'll take a small team on our civilian transport, the Goodwill. We'll appear weak, confused, honored by their invitation. Meanwhile," Admiral Harrison nodded, understanding her plan. "Meanwhile, we mobilize the fleet. Operation Thunderbolt. If you signal trouble, we arrive with everything we have." "They believe humanity won't show up ready for a fight," Diane said. "Let's use that belief against them." President Alvarez called for a vote. The decision was unanimous. Earth would send its best diplomat in a simple ship to meet with the mighty Concordat. Officially, that was all they were doing. Unofficially, Captain Alan Rogers received new orders that evening. As he read them aboard the EDF Valiant, hidden in an asteroid base beyond Mars, he began preparing his crew for war. Commander Eric Daniels floated through the massive construction bay, hidden inside Ceres, the largest asteroid in the belt between Mars and Jupiter. All around him, Workers in spacesuits moved with purpose, welding, testing, and fine-tuning the most advanced war machines humanity had ever built. "Status report on the Defiant," Eric asked into his helmet mic. "Phantom drive is at 94% efficiency, sir," replied a technician. "Dr. Wright is working on the final calibrations now." Eric pushed himself toward the nearest ship. The EDF Defiant was one of 30 destroyers that made up the backbone of Earth's secret fleet. Its dark hull absorbed radar and light, making it nearly invisible to conventional sensors. But its true power lay in the engine room. In a sealed chamber at the heart of the vessel, Dr. Olivia Wright floated before a control panel, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. The phantom drive hummed softly around her, its blue glow casting shadows on her focused face. "You promised me 98% efficiency, Doctor," Eric said as he entered the chamber. Olivia didn't look up. "And you'll get it, Commander. But rushing me won't help." The Phantom Drive was humanity's greatest achievement, a propulsion system based on a crashed Vrexian ship, but improved by human ingenuity. It allowed travel at speeds the aliens believed impossible, and it did so while remaining undetectable to their sensors. Eric's comm unit beeped. "Daniel's here." "Commander, Admiral Harrison requests your presence in command." "Priority Alpha," said a voice. 10 minutes later, Eric floated into the asteroid's central command center. Admiral Harrison stood before a massive display showing the positions of all 150 ships in Earth's hidden fleet. "The Council has approved Operation Thunderbolt," Harrison said without preamble. "Ambassador Matthews leaves for the summit in 3 days. Our window to deploy is tight." The Admiral gestured to a young officer with red hair. "Lieutenant Nash has something to show us." Lieutenant Leo Nash cleared his throat nervously. "Sir, I've been analyzing the Vrexian defense systems based on the data from the crashed ship. There's a flaw in their shield modulation that we can exploit." He brought up technical diagrams on the screen. Their shields cycle through these 5 patterns. There's a millisecond gap during the 3rd transition that would allow a properly timed energy pulse to disrupt their entire defense grid without destroying their ships. Admiral Harrison raised an eyebrow. "You're suggesting we can disable rather than destroy their fleet?" "Yes, sir," Leo replied. "If our goal is to demonstrate superior strength without unnecessary casualties, this could be our best option." Eric studied the data. "The timing would have to be perfect." "My team can program the firing solutions," Leo said with quiet confidence. "We just need all ships equipped with the latest targeting systems." Harrison nodded thoughtfully. "Make it happen, Lieutenant." "Commander Daniels, how soon can your ships be ready?" "The Phantom drives need final calibration. Dr. Wright promises 98% efficiency within 48 hours. She has 24, Harrison said firmly. "Get her whatever she needs." As Eric left to deliver the news to Olivia, he passed the communications center where specialists monitored alien transmissions. Kate Morgan, their best decoder, waved him over. "Commander, you should hear this," she said, offering him a headset. Eric listened to the translated Vrexian communication. 2 alien officials laughed about Earth's primitive technology and how the humans would arrive in a metal box powered by chemical rockets. "They have no idea what's coming," Kate said with a small smile. Eric handed back the headset, "And we're going to keep it that way until the last possible moment." Across the asteroid base, preparations accelerated. Crews loaded weapons systems, engineers ran final diagnostics, and pilots practiced formation maneuvers in simulators. Earth was ready to reveal its true strength to a galaxy that had gravely underestimated humanity. Meanwhile, on Earth, Ambassador Matthews packed a small bag for her journey on the civilian transport Goodwill, appearing to all observers as a diplomat heading to a routine, if important, meeting. The civilian transport ship Goodwill moved slowly through space, its engines humming steadily. From the outside, it looked like a simple passenger vessel, outdated, bulky, and unimpressive. The Vrexians who watched its approach to Nexus Station sneered at the primitive human technology. Inside the ship, Ambassador Diane Matthews sat in her private cabin reviewing her notes. Her small team consisted of just 6 people, carefully chosen for both their diplomatic skills and their hidden talents. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. "Enter," she called. Frank Reyes stepped in. The stocky, dark-haired man appeared to be her security chief, but he was actually a special forces commander with training in 15 different combat styles. "We're 2 hours from docking," he said. "The Vrexians have sent their docking protocols. They're unnecessarily complicated." Diane smiled slightly. "They want us to make mistakes, to look foolish. Should we comply?" Frank asked. "Follow their protocols exactly," Diane replied. "For now, we play the role they expect." In the ship's communication center, Kate Morgan sat before a console that appeared simple and outdated. Behind its basic interface, however, was Earth's most advanced communication system. While the Vrexians believed she was merely sending routine messages back to Earth, Kate was actually maintaining constant encrypted contact with Admiral Harrison's fleet. "They're scanning us again," Kate reported as Diane entered the room. "Basic energy and mass detection. Nothing that can penetrate our inner hull." "Good," Diane nodded. "What's the fleet status?" Kate's fingers moved across her console. "Operation Thunderbolt is proceeding on schedule. All ships are in position in the shadow zones. They'll remain undetected unless they activate their drives." On the main screen, Nexus Station grew larger as they approached. The massive space platform was a wonder of alien engineering. A spinning wheel nearly 5 miles across, with docking arms extending outward like spokes. Ships from 7 different alien species were already docked. "Our welcoming committee is assembled," Kate said, zooming in on a group of aliens waiting at the docking port. "Ambassador Zex Valor of the Vrexians is personally greeting us." Diane studied the tall, gray-skinned alien. "An unusual honor. They're really putting on a show." As the Goodwill docked with a slight shudder, Diane gathered her team for final instructions. "Remember, we appear respectful, a bit overwhelmed, and grateful for their attention," she told them. "Dr. Wright, stay in the background. If anyone asks, you're a cultural advisor." Olivia Wright nodded. Her presence was a carefully guarded secret. While the Vrexians thought she was a minor diplomatic aide, she was actually there to assess their technology firsthand. The airlock door opened with a hiss. Ambassador Zex Valor stood waiting. Towering 7 feet tall, his 4 arms held in a formal greeting posture. Behind him stood representatives from the Concordat's member species. "Ambassador Matthews," Zex Valor said, his translator making his voice sound metallic. "The Galactic Concordat welcomes Earth's delegation. We are pleased that you could make the journey in your simple vessel." Diane bowed slightly, just a bit too deeply, playing the role of an overly deferential human. "The honor is ours, Ambassador. Earth is grateful for this opportunity to learn from the advanced species of the galaxy." She didn't miss the smirk that passed between Zex Valor and his aides. "Please follow me," the Vrexian said. "The preliminary meetings begin in 2 hours. Until then, we have arranged quarters for your delegation." As they followed the aliens through the gleaming corridors of Nexus Station, Frank stayed close to Diane, his eyes constantly scanning for threats. Kate tapped a small device on her wrist 3 times, sending a coded message to the waiting Earth fleet. In the darkness of space, Admiral Harrison received the signal. "They've arrived safely," he told Captain Rogers on the bridge of the EDF Valiant. "Now we wait for their assessment of the situation." Rogers nodded grimly. "And hope we don't have to use the fleet." The meeting chamber on Nexus Station gleamed with polished metal and strange glowing stones. 7 massive chairs formed a half-circle for the Concordat's ruling species. In front of them, smaller seats had been arranged for Earth's delegation and representatives from other minor species. Diane noticed immediately that their chairs were lower than everyone else's, another attempt to make them feel small and unimportant. She took her seat without complaint, maintaining her role as the grateful, naive diplomat. High Chancellor Vorkath of the Vrexians entered last. His gray skin had a purple tint that marked his high rank, and the jewels on his formal robe caught the light as he moved. All four of his arms were adorned with metal bands that hummed with energy. "We welcome all to this summit," Vorketh began, his voice deep and smooth through the translator. "Especially our newest guests from Earth." Diane nodded respectfully while studying the other aliens in the room. Representatives from 7 other species sat nearby, all looking nervous and submissive. She recognized the furred Raltorians and the crystalline Exencha, but the others were new to her. This summit has been called to discuss the expansion of the Concordat and the proper place of developing species within our order, Vorketh continued. For millennia, we have guided lesser species towards civilization. Frank Reyes shifted slightly beside Diane. It was their code for spotting security concerns. She followed his gaze and noticed armed Phyrexian guards entering the room quietly, taking positions near all exits. "Earth is honored to be considered for membership," Diane said, keeping her voice steady. "We have much to learn from your wisdom." Vorketh's mouth stretched in what might have been a smile. "Indeed, and we have prepared a special agreement for Earth, one that will allow your species to serve a valuable role in our community." With a wave of his hand, a holographic document appeared in front of Diane. As she pretended to read it carefully, her blood ran cold. This was no diplomatic agreement. It was a surrender document, granting the Concordat full control of Earth's resources and people. "This is very comprehensive," she said carefully. "Our government will need time to review such an important document." Vorketh's false smile vanished. "There is nothing to review, Ambassador. You will sign now, or face the consequences of refusal." The chamber grew silent. The other alien representatives looked down, unwilling to meet her eyes. "I don't understand," Diane said, playing confused. This summit was described as a discussion, not a demand for surrender. "Let us be clear," Vorketh said, standing to his full height. "Your species has been assessed and found useful only as a resource. Your planet has valuable minerals. Your people will serve as labor. This is not a negotiation." He gestured toward a large viewing screen that showed a Phyrexian battle fleet moving into formation. "Our ships are already approaching your system. You have no defenses capable of stopping them." Diane felt a hand brush against her arm. Kate Morgan had slipped her a small device under the table. "Their emergency signal." "What of these other species?" Diane asked, looking around the room. "Are they members or servants of your Concordat?" A thin, blue-skinned alien flinched at her question. Keth noticed and narrowed his eyes. "They have accepted their proper place," he said coldly. "As will you." Diane stood slowly. "I need to consult with my team." "You are not leaving this chamber," Vorketh said. The guards moved forward, weapons ready. "And your ship has been disabled. You have no way to contact Earth." Frank tensed, ready to act. Diane touched his arm lightly, holding him back. "Then I have no choice but to reject this proposal," she said firmly, dropping her submissive act. "Earth will not surrender." Vorketh laughed, a harsh sound that echoed in the chamber. "You have no fleet, no defenses. Your bravery is amusing but pointless." Diane pressed the small device Kate had given her, activating the emergency signal. She looked directly at Vorketh, a small smile forming on her lips. "Are you certain about that?" she asked. In the darkness of space beyond Nexus Station, 20 Earth warships suddenly appeared, their phantom drives deactivating as they emerged from stealth. Operation Thunderbolt had begun. Alarms blared throughout Nexus Station. Red lights flashed in the meeting chamber as Phyrexian officers rushed to High Chancellor Vorketh's side. "Impossible," Vorketh hissed, staring at the display showing 20 human warships that had appeared from nowhere. "Their technology is primitive. They have no stealth capabilities." Diane Matthews smiled calmly. "Perhaps your assessment of humanity was incomplete, Chancellor." On the bridge of the EDF Valiant, Captain Alan Rogers stood tall as his ship led the first wave of Earth's fleet. The sleek, dark vessels moved into a perfect formation around Nexus Station. All ships report ready, Captain, his first officer said. Weapons systems are charged but defeated as ordered. Alan nodded. Open a channel to the station. On the main screen, the image of Nexus Station's command center appeared. Vrexian officers moved frantically between stations while alarms continued to sound. This is Captain Alan Rogers of the Earth Defense Fleet, he announced clearly. We request the immediate release of Earth's diplomatic delegation. A Vrexian commander snarled at the screen. Your ships will be destroyed. Our fleet is already being tracked by the rest of our forces. Alan interrupted. 130 additional Earth vessels are currently monitoring your battle fleet's approach to our system. Back in the meeting chamber, Diane watched as Vorketh received this news through his communicator. His purple-gray skin paled noticeably. You deceived us, he accused, pointing at Diane. We protected ourselves, she corrected, just as you concealed your true intentions behind this diplomatic summit. The guards around the room raised their weapons, but Frank Rice was faster. He activated a small device on his wrist, and every energy weapon in the room suddenly powered down. Localized energy dampening field, Frank explained with a slight grin. One of our primitive technologies. Olivia Wright stepped forward, no longer hiding her true role. We've been studying your technology since your scout ship crashed on our planet 8 years ago. You'd be surprised how much we've learned. The blue-skinned alien who had flinched earlier now stood shakily. Is it true? He asked Diane. You can stand against the Concordat. Before she could answer, the main screen in the chamber activated. Captain Rogers' face appeared, calm and professional. Ambassador Matthews, are you and your team secure? We are now, Captain, Diane replied. She turned to the other alien representatives. I invite all delegates to join me aboard the Earth vessel Valiant. It's time for an honest discussion about the future of galactic relations. Vorketh slammed all 4 of his fists on the table. This is outrageous. The Concordat has ruled this sector for millennia. You cannot simply. We can, and we will, Diane interrupted firmly. Your rule through intimidation ends today. Lieutenant Leo Nash's voice came through Captain Rogers' comm unit. Sir, I've established the targeting solution. All Vrexian defensive systems can be disabled on your command. Proceed, Lieutenant, Rogers ordered. Across Nexus Station, Vrexian weapon systems suddenly powered down. Their shields flickered and failed. Even their personal weapons stopped functioning. In the meeting chamber, the other alien delegates began to whisper among themselves, looking at the humans with new respect and hope. Diane addressed them directly. For too long, the Concordat has used its technological advantage to subjugate others. Earth refuses that path. We offer instead an alliance of equals. The blue-skinned alien stepped forward. I am Representative Nixlor of the Athrani. For 3 generations, we have been servants to the Concordat. If Earth truly offers freedom, we do, Diane confirmed. One by one, the other representatives moved to stand with Diane and Nixlor. Only the Vrexians remained isolated, their power visibly crumbling. Aboard the EDF Valiant, Admiral Harrison received an urgent communication from Earth. Captain Rogers, the Vrexian battle fleet has changed course. They're no longer heading toward Earth. They've likely received news of our capabilities, Rogers replied. Lieutenant Nash's defensive countermeasures have proven effective. As Diane and the alien representatives prepared to board an Earth shuttle, she looked back at Vorketh. The galaxy is changing, Chancellor. Humanity isn't here to conquer, but we won't be conquered either. For the first time in recorded history, the mighty Concordat had met its match, and the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath as a new balance of power emerged. Admiral Harrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, the EDF Defender, as it led Earth's main fleet toward the approaching Vrexian armada. The starfield on the main screen showed 130 human ships moving in perfect formation through the darkness of space. The Vrexian fleet has slowed, Admiral, reported the sensor officer. They appear to be reassessing their approach. Harrison nodded. They've likely received word about what happened at Nexus Station. Lieutenant Mills, what's their current strength? Lieutenant Samantha Mills studied her intelligence displays. 53 warships, sir. Their flagship is twice the size of our largest vessel. But based on our scans, their weapons systems share the same vulnerability Lieutenant Nash identified. Good, Harrison said. Prepare to broadcast on all frequencies. It's time to offer them a choice. Before he could give the order, the communications officer called out, "Sir, incoming transmission from the Phyrexian flagship." The main screen flickered, revealing the face of Supreme Commander Drazkar. The Phyrexian's expression was difficult for humans to read, but his rigid posture suggested anger or perhaps fear. "Human vessels," Drazkar began. "You are trespassing in Concordat space. Your actions at Nexus Station are an act of war. Surrender immediately or face destruction." Harrison stepped forward. "This is Admiral Paul Harrison of the Earth Defense Fleet. Your forces were heading to our system with hostile intent. We have simply intercepted you along the way." Drazkar's eyes narrowed. "Impossible. Your primitive world couldn't possibly. Track your fleet. Build advanced ships. Develop technology to counter your weapons." Harrison smiled slightly. "We've managed all of that and more. The question now is whether you wish to test our capabilities directly." On another part of the Phyrexian flagship, a small team of humans, led by Commander Eric Daniels, moved silently through the service corridors. Using schematics derived from the crashed scout ship they had boarded during the confusion of the fleet's sudden stop. "Security checkpoint ahead," whispered Specialist Greg Peters, checking the small scanner. "2 guards." Eric nodded to his team. They activated their stealth suits, technology reverse-engineered and improved from Phyrexian designs. The suits bent light around them, making them nearly invisible. Within minutes, they had passed the guards and reached the ship's central data core. Eric attached a small device to the alien computer system. "Beginning download," he said softly into his comm unit. "Dr. Wright's decryption program is working perfectly." Back on the bridge of the EDF Defender, Admiral Harrison continued his conversation with Drazkar. "Your fleet will power down weapons and return to your territory," Harrison said firmly. "The days of the Concordat threatening other species are over." Drazkar laughed harshly. "You may have surprised us, human, but the Concordat has ruled this sector for thousands of years. We have resources you cannot imagine, including the extinction of 3 species who refuse to submit." Harrison asked calmly. The Phyrexian commander froze. "What did you say?" "We know about the Tellarites, the Vosh, and the Meridian. Species who received the same invitation as Earth, refused your terms, and mysteriously disappeared." Lieutenant Mills approached Harrison, whispering, "Sir, Commander Daniels' team has secured the military database. The evidence of genocide is confirmed." Harrison nodded. "The choice is simple. Commander Drazkar, withdraw your fleet now, or we will share your crimes with every species in the sector." On the screen, Drazkar's composure visibly cracked. "You are making a grave mistake. The Concordat will not forget this insult. Nor will we forget your planned invasion," Harrison replied. "But unlike you, we prefer peace to annihilation. You have 1 hour to begin your withdrawal." As the transmission ended, the weapons officer called out, "Sir, the Phyrexian vessels are powering up their main weapons systems." Harrison sighed. "They've made their choice. Signal all ships to implement Lieutenant Nash's targeting solution. Disable their weapons and propulsion systems only." The Earth fleet moved with coordinated precision. Beams of energy struck the Phyrexian ships at exactly the right frequency and timing to exploit the weakness in their shields. One by one, the mighty vessels of the Concordat went dark, floating powerless in space. Within 20 minutes, the entire Phyrexian fleet had been neutralized without a single ship destroyed or life lost. "Admiral," Lieutenant Mills said with a note of awe in her voice, "Commander Daniels reports their flagship is secure. The Phyrexian military database is now ours. On the EDF Valiant, Captain Rogers welcomed Ambassador Matthews and the representatives from the 7 formerly subjugated species. The ship's conference room had been quickly adapted to accommodate the different physical needs of each alien visitor. The Phyrexian fleet has been neutralized, Rogers informed them as they settled around the large table. No ships destroyed, no lives lost. Nixlor, the blue-skinned Ethrani, blinked his large eyes in disbelief. You disabled an entire Concordat battle fleet without casualties. This is unprecedented. Diane nodded. Earth believes in showing strength without unnecessary destruction. We hope it's the first of many differences you'll notice between humanity and the Concordat. Dr. Olivia Wright entered the conference room, her tablet displaying data from Nexus Station. Ambassador, I've completed my analysis of the Phyrexian communication network. With your permission, we're ready to proceed with the broadcast. What broadcast? Asked a crystalline, Xensha representative, light reflecting off her faceted skin. Evidence, Diane explained. Commander Daniels has secured the Phyrexian military database from their flagship. It contains records of atrocities committed against dozens of species, including the complete extinction of 3 civilizations who refused to submit to Concordat rule. The alien representatives stirred uncomfortably. The small, furry Roltorian spoke up. The Phyrexians control all communication networks in this sector. No one would receive your broadcast. Olivia smiled slightly. Not anymore. She tapped her tablet, and a holographic display appeared above the table showing the network of communication relays. We've been studying Phyrexian technology for years. Lieutenant Nash developed a bypass system that will override their controls. Captain Rogers looked to Diane. The system is ready, Ambassador. Admiral Harrison awaits your order. Diane looked around at the alien representatives. This decision shouldn't be made by Earth alone. The Concordat has oppressed your peoples for generations. You should have a say in how this evidence is shared. The representatives looked at each other in surprise. None of them had ever been consulted on a major decision before. I believe all should know the truth, Nixlor said finally. The others murmured agreement. Diane nodded to Olivia. Send the signal. Throughout the sector, communication systems on every planet, station, and ship suddenly activated. The evidence of Phyrexian atrocities. Images, documents, recordings flowed through channels that had once carried only Concordat propaganda. On the Phyrexian flagship, Supreme Commander Drazkar watched in horror as his empire crumbled through mere information. The humans had done what no species had managed in thousands of years. They had broken the Concordat's control of knowledge. This is impossible, he whispered. Commander Eric Daniels stood nearby, guarding the data core with his team. You made a critical mistake, Commander. You judged us by our apparent technology, not by our potential. Drazkar turned to his second-in-command. Activate the self-destruct. We cannot be taken prisoner. The younger Phyrexian hesitated. Sir, there are 50,000 crew members aboard. Do it, Drazkar demanded. The Concordat cannot show weakness. Before his officer could respond, Drazkar drew a concealed weapon and fired at the control panel. Alarms began blaring throughout the massive ship. Self-destruct sequence initiated, announced an automated voice. Complete in 5 minutes. Eric immediately activated his comm unit. Daniels to Admiral Harrison. The flagship is set to self-destruct. On the EDF Defender, Harrison turned to Lieutenant Mills. Begin immediate evacuation of the Phyrexian flagship. All available shuttles. We're not letting 50,000 die for their commander's pride. Earth vessels raced toward the Phyrexian flagship, launching shuttles and escape pods. Human rescue teams in spacesuits entered the alien ship, directing confused crew members to safety. The second-in-command seized control from Drazkar. All personnel, evacuate immediately. This is not a drill. As the timer counted down, Earth ships worked frantically to save as many Phyrexians as possible. It was a rescue operation unlike anything seen before in the sector, one species risking their lives to save those who had planned to conquer them. In the final seconds, the last shuttle cleared the flagship's docking bay. The massive vessel exploded in a blinding flash, but thanks to humanity's efforts, 45,000 Phyrexian lives had been spared. 1 month after the confrontation at Nexus Station, representatives from 23 species gathered in the Grand Meeting Hall aboard the EDF Valiant. The Earth ship had been modified to serve as neutral ground for what many were calling the most important diplomatic event in 1,000 years. Ambassador Diane Matthews stood at the center of the room, looking at the assembled delegates. Some were former members of the Concordat. Others were independent species who had hidden from Phyrexian expansion. All were here because humanity had changed the balance of power in the galaxy. Welcome to the first assembly of free worlds, Diane began. Earth is honored to host this historic gathering. The room was arranged in a circle, with no seat higher than another, a deliberate contrast to the hierarchical design of Concordat meetings. Admiral Harrison and Captain Rogers sat with the Earth delegation, while Dr. Wright and Lieutenant Nash attended as technical advisors. 1 month ago, the Phyrexian Concordat ruled this sector through fear and deception, Diane continued. Today, we have an opportunity to build something better. An alliance based on mutual respect and cooperation. Nix Lore of the Athrani, now speaking as a free representative of his people, stood. The humans saved 45,000 Phyrexian lives during the destruction of the flagship. They could have let them perish, yet they risked their own people to save their enemies. He bowed to the Earth delegation. This shows a wisdom my people wish to learn. A Phyrexian representative rose next. Unlike the former leaders of the Concordat, this one wore simple clothes without rank insignia. I am Zelthar, chosen by the surviving Phyrexians to speak here. I must acknowledge our crimes against many species present here today. The old Concordat is gone. We seek not forgiveness, but a chance to make amends. Murmurs spread through the assembly. No one had expected the Phyrexians to admit their wrongs so openly. Admiral Harrison addressed the gathering next. Earth entered galactic society prepared for war because we detected a threat. But our true desire has always been peace. Our fleet remains ready, but we hope it will serve as a peacekeeping force rather than a conquering one. Over the next hours, delegates discussed the framework for a new galactic alliance. The Earth proposal called for equal representation, shared technology, mutual defense, and protection for developing species. The key difference between this alliance and the Concordat, Diane explained, is that we seek to lift up all members, not control them. Stronger together, but each maintaining their own culture and sovereignty. As the session neared its end, Captain Rogers approached the center of the room. If I may, Ambassador, I'd like to address something important. At Diane's nod, he continued, many have asked why Earth built such a powerful fleet in secret. Some even fear we might become the new Concordat. He paused, looking around the room. Humanity has a long history of both war and peace. We know the dangers of power. That's why this alliance must have safeguards against any single species gaining too much control, including Earth. The crystalline Xentia representative chimed in, her voice like music. You could have conquered where the Phyrexians failed, yet you propose limits on your own power. Because true strength comes from cooperation, not domination, Rogers replied. As the meeting concluded, delegates moved to smaller rooms to continue discussions. Lieutenant Nash found himself approached by scientists from 3 different species, all eager to exchange ideas with the young officer whose tactical innovations had changed the course of history. In a quiet corner, Diane stood with Admiral Harrison, watching the mingling delegates. They believe humanity wouldn't show, Harrison said quietly, or that we'd arrive weak and unprepared. Diane smiled. Being underestimated turned out to be our greatest advantage. And now? Harrison asked. Now we do what humanity has always done best, she replied. Adapt, learn, build something new. She looked out at the gathering of diverse species. The Concordat saw the stars as something to conquer. We see them as something to explore together. Outside the viewports of the EDF Valiant, The stars shone brightly in the darkness of space, no longer a battlefield, but a frontier of possibility for a new alliance led by the species no one had expected to change the galaxy.